it's Georgie the Goblin, and welcome to the official Family of Gamers podcast. The podcast where Andrew and Coach talk all things war games, board games, and much, much more. And here are your hosts, Andrew and Coach.
FOG Andrew here from the Family of Gamers. Welcome, War Gamers, to an exciting, awesome episode of the podcast, the Family of Gamers podcast. We have, of course, Coach on.
What's up?
And we got Ryan as well.
How's it going?
And a special guest on this very episode of the podcast. We have Bryan from Deadzone, the podcast.
Woo!
Woo! Go Rebs!
Go
Start us off strong.
Yeah.
Hey, who would have?
I'm a special guest.
Who would have thought that we'd have Bryan on our podcast? That's only about a year old, and I've never been on their podcast.
You know, the offer has been floated, and now it's just like a thing.
The offer
right?
has been floated, but it hasn't been given. So you and Bryan can go suck it. And Rick.
Listen,
and Bryan unceremoniously kicked Rick off the podcast. I thought that was a bad move, Bryan.
I did not kick him off the podcast. He left voluntarily because he felt that he could not be objective with his takes on things now being employed by Mantic.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair.
Yeah.
See, this is the perfect episode to have you on, Bryan, because we got a lot to talk about. And if this is your first time listening to the Family of Gamers podcast, we talk all things miniature gaming, board games, tabletop games, hobby, stuff like that. And if you want, you guys can check out our link tree in the description or whatever else is on Spotify. I keep forgetting. Linktree is there where it has our link to our YouTube channel and our social media pages, Patreon page, Discord server, and all of that good stuff. But in this episode, this is going to be very centralized to one game because I have a lot of things to say about this. And I thought this would be a great episode to have Bryan on because we're talking the Rebs. No, don't click off the video yet, guys. Come on. Please
no, don't do it.
Don't click off. I know it's the Rebs. Don't click off the video. It's okay. Or the podcast. But yeah, so we put out a skit about the Rebs, and the main reason why I wanted to do that is because if you haven't seen it, go check it out on the YouTube channel. The Rebs are gone. We had an amazing singer sing our song there.
That was pretty neat.
Yeah, because Andrew was very sad in that skit. So the Rebs are gone, and Mantic said that they would bring back the Rebs if we followed them on their social media platforms.
Or all of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Wait, can I just say before we talk about this on the
Yes.
Rebs Are Gone skit, there were some comments that were just like, this is really weird. But yeah, I agree with you.
I know, it was very weird. And I thought it was funny too, like our Guild Ball skit, people thought we played Guild Ball.
We did not.
We did not play Guild Ball. It was just a joke. We didn't actually play the game. So but yeah, I mean, in our Halloween skit, I actually did not turn into a goblin in that one. So, it's all a joke. It's all a joke, guys.
No, it all really happened. This is the joke.
Well, that is in the multiverse. That's like Earth 62. So, or I'm sorry, Earth 52, and that is an alternate universe where all that stuff does happen. Like a Terraton talking to me and telling me that I had to follow Mantic on their social media pages. Now I just want a quick thoughts about that because I saw that and I was extremely mad about that. I'm curious to know what
About the Teratons talking to you? I
No,
was a
no,
little
no.
upset they didn't tell me first, but
uh,
you know,
no,
they
I
was
saw.
probably just waiting for me to paint them up.
Yeah, you haven't painted any Teratons?
I have a couple, but I just recently painted a new one.
Ooh, unfortunately, they can't
Yeah,
see it on the screen, but
that's
I will
that's
say,
their problem.
through the blurriness, it looks good.
Yeah, no, that's the paint job.
Yeah,
That's
the bit. I made it look blurry. um, uh, well, I think it was Andy posted like they did this month at Mantic, and he mentioned it in the video, and it was like, oh, if you follow us on the social media pages, then we could like, do something with the Rebs, and I think
Mhm.
they said it was just like, oh, we'll bring back like a plastic sprue of Reb models or something like that, and I'm like, sprue as
What?
in like singular,
Yeah.
like not like a bunch of sprues,
That's
or
a cruel
spree
joke.
or whatever the plural is for sprue. Um,
That's a cruel joke that wasn't meant to be a joke. They were serious.
yeah. So like, but what's funny is that was like what, a couple months ago, 3 months
Yeah,
ago maybe.
that was it. That was before the summer campaign, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or was it after?
Oh wow, yeah, it's been that long.
It was the that stellar summer of sci-fi.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
which that's a whole nother discussion, but
think I got a link somewhere to this thing.
yeah, that was months ago. And when I heard that, I was pissed. I was mad because at this point, just just do something with the Rebs. You know, like now you're like bribing us to follow you on social media so that we can bring back the Rebs. And I'm sure now they're like, well, no one followed us on these. We didn't reach the goals, so I guess we're never bringing back the Rebs. Like I guess no one wanted it. That's what I feel like is in the back of their minds, kind of. They're like, well, no one followed us, so whatever.
But
Um,
to further kind of put a stamp on this, so this was August 8th, is when I've got the update of the social media post, which was like when they were like at 70, almost 71,000 Facebook and Instagram followers. Uh, so it's and we're recording this at the tail end of December. Um, so just to time box that for you. So it's been going for several months now.
yeah. And as far as I know, they haven't reached any of their goals or have said anything about it.
Not
They
yet.
they've been all haloed up, talking about posting on Instagram about that stuff.
But
Um,
the thing is if a guy is into Deadzone, you're
Mm,
already following them on all their social medias.
yeah,
So now you're like, well, you should really we're going to get these social media goals, and it'll be like the rebellion, and then we'll get new sprues for the Rebs. But everybody already is playing Deadzone into Deadzone. We're already following. I can't follow you again. Like, like what we got to do? Make fake accounts and follow on everything else. It's like that.
It
that
shouldn't have to come to this.
yeah, really. It's like
This is an OP faction right here.
I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm going to endorse that, but to further the cause.
and it's like all right, we came out with the Matsudan brand new faction. We got some new marionettes.
Mhm.
We came out with a whole thing, the Night Stalkers, yeah. And with the Rebs, well, you got to follow us, or we're not going to bring them out.
that was like that. And Ryan, we talked about this a little bit before off camera, but it was like, okay, you brought back you brought the Night Stalkers in as a Dead Zone faction. I'm not mad about that. I like their models in Kings of War. I think they're cool looking dudes. Okay, cool. Bringing them into Dead Zone. That's cool. And they had like the cool thing, like you go to like the Maison Labs website and stuff, and it was like an in of universe thing. It's kind of cool. But then you
Mhm.
also now you made the Mastodon as its own faction. Listen, no hate on the Mastodon. I like their models, except that mech. But what, what? I feel like the Mastodon was just kind of like a random thing. Like, what happened to the Saphir being a faction? You know, that was a thing years ago. They were saying,
Yeah, it did seem kind of out of the blue to do the Mastodon.
yeah,
I don't know if it was just that they kind of struck a chord with people that were really looking for the sumo. Yeah, I think a big part of it does seem like someone at Mantic was like, dude, sumo is so cool. And I'm not knocking sumo. It's just I think someone was a big fan of it. And they're like, well, we've got these giant space lizards. Like, let's build that out. Let's make it a little bit more of a solid faction and have a little bit more lore to them, and whatnot. It is that you know, especially from someone who played Dreadball quite a bit. Like, there's 32 teams, I think, in that game, and uh, over half of them are like unique species that exist in the Warpath universe. And Matsudan were just like one of the most recent additions to that roster. So it is that thing, like there are so many really fascinating and like cool species that exist in the Warpath universe. And like I I'm not big on the Asterians to begin with, so like I'm not the most hardcore Matsudan fan that you might find advocating for them. But it is one of those like, man, it'd be really cool if some of these other species also kind of got a little bit of love.
Well, we were supposed to get the Zor years ago,
I was just
Yeah,
gonna say that the Zor and the
and
Zor
yeah.
are cool.
Ronnie made it seem like, oh, the Zor are coming, and they are going to be like this is like the Borg in Star Trek. Like the
Yeah,
worst thing that happened to the Warpath universe was the Zor coming.
Mhm.
And that was 10 years ago.
yeah, yeah. I just I feel like the Night Stalkers made sense to make into a faction. I think that
Yeah,
makes more sense than the Mastodon. You know.
Dare I say this was just kind of like easy for them to do, to put something new out and say they're putting something new out, just because, I mean, like the Mastodon already exist, and then the Night Stalkers is just an integration from, the mass battle game. So
From Kings of War.
yeah, from Kings of War. So
yeah. I mean, like it's one of those things where like, yeah, the Matsudan exists, but I also would make the case like they put in the work to make new Matsudan models
yeah,
and everything like that. So I don't take that decision as particularly, lazy or like the path of least resistance.
Well, it wasn't that many. What did they do? Like one
They,
extra
they, they
model
are
and
there
a
are
few.
few model counts, but
Yeah, and then the same thing with the Night Stalkers, and then like that was the thing when I did that video about um um what I was hopeful for Mantic was I even I had to take some time off because football season, and now I'm back and I'm painting up my Night Stalkers, and I don't know who anybody is because I go on the website and it's like you actually got to hunt for stuff. I can't tell the difference between this and that, and it's like, oh well, yeah, well, when are they going to come out with the Croc Dogs? We'll check the Kings of War thing, and then like the the Mastodon have a like this big lizard. It's kind of it's called the translation is Japanese salamander, and they're like, oh yeah, well that's in the Kings of War. Why do I gotta go Kings of War? What do I gotta go for? What do I gotta go there for? You know what I mean? And then if you look at the Night Stalkers, there's hardly anything in there in the Mantic on the website. So like what's going on with that?
you mean
So
specifically for Deadzone, or because like you could,
yes, I'm
right.
gonna pull it right now. I'll show you.
because I remember we made like when we were like when they first came out, we made an Excel sheet about what was available for Deadzone,
Right.
and what was available for Kings of War to like, if we got it, what would make, where's the overlap? Yeah. Well, that's the folks online can't see it, but
yeah. So if you look at the website, they have like the Incursion Booster, Night Stalker Banshee, the Starter, Interdimensional Horrors, and then the Fighters and Butchers and Ravagers. And that's it. And they're all basically from Kings of War. I think the that dog thing is a little different, but other than that, it's the same kind of difference, so, which is okay, but like, put them on the website so I could figure it out, so.
Yeah, I think the trick with sometimes like the naming of all these models and stuff, it takes some getting used to.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always kind of like navigation on their website at times seems kind of almost needlessly obtuse. Like sometimes it's just tricky to find things that you're looking for.
Right.
Or there's sections you can navigate to that have almost nothing, which is like the topic of today.
Right.
Like the Rebs. What do we have out there for the Rebs?
Yeah, what do we have out?
Enforcer Strider, Enforcer Strider with Burst Laser, out of stock. Enforcer Strider with Burst Laser Upgrade Pack, out of stock. Rebs character Adrian Nikolovsky, Rebs character Edic Premier, Rebs character Hun, Rebs Tigrix Outrider. That's it.
And all of them are in the vault.
Is this in the
vault? Not all of them.
I don't think any of them are in the vault. I think the Strider's in the vault.
The Tigrex is in the vault. Right. The Burst Laser's in the vault now.
Right. But not the Strider itself, but like the accoutrement of the basically everything for the Strider without having a Strider. So if you have a Strider, you can outfit it.
The Tigrex Outrider's just from Overdrive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But he is a red model.
I know that, but I'm just saying, like, Enforcers is the Strider's from the Enforcers. The Tigrex Outrider is from the from Overdrive.
It is funny that it's the Enforcer Strider in particular that we're listing on the Rebs page, but I suppose that's where they maybe got it from.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, it makes sense. Like, okay, like they outfitted a Strider. They're using an Enforcer Strider, or like the Plague Strider is really, it's a destroyed Enforcer Strider. I get it, but like let's say we discount the 3 Strider things that are on the Rebs page, and we discount the Tigrix Outrider. Actually, let's just keep it in there. There's only 4 things here. Literally 4 models.
You can't run a faction with just this stuff.
Well, that's quitter talk, Coach, because it could be the most expensive Rev starter you could get, where
that's
you
true.
Just do a bunch of Adrian Nikolovsky, a bunch of Edic, a bunch of the Hund, and then you have a support unit of the Tigrex.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be street legal, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Oh, you just use Adrian as like a bunch of Saphirs,
Yep.
Now, how many?
All of them have troop equivalents.
Yeah,
is what I'm getting at.
That is true. But now I have to spend 10 quid or whatever. They're
you have to spend quite a bit of money.
On one.
And they're
Saphir.
metal models, except for the Tigrex.
Yeah. So I gotta like spend a crap ton of money just to run the Rebs. For
the cause.
Yeah, for the cause. But I think it's a little ridiculous, and I think it's just like, you look at something like the Plague, where they revamped their models, where like you have like the what do you call it, like the
stage 2s,
the stage 1,
Plague Lord,
right,
the Terracon,
right,
the Bursters.
They made a new model for the Plague Terraton, but not for the regular Terraton.
Right.
You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like, are you like, are you serious? You know, like they, you know, I guess I was out of the loop for Deadzone for a little bit, but I think like when did they do the like these new models? Because I don't remember them doing it, but I remember recently looking and like in the last year when we were playing Deadzone again more, I was like,
It
oh yeah, they
was
changed them.
It was a while.
it was when the Asterian Plague Starter came out. So I think it's 2-3 years
Right.
ago. It was after third edition,
Yeah.
but it was between the first release, which was GCPS Veerman, and the second one, which was the Asterians and Plague.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I look at them and I'm like, okay, you know, I didn't really realize they changed them, to be honest, because like I was
Mhm.
finishing up school, I was doing stuff, you know,
Yeah.
so it was like I wasn't really in the loop, and then I see that they changed them. I'm like, oh, okay, so you basically revamped a lot of these plague models.
Hmm.
Is the Rebs, you know? At least
Yeah.
like, and you know what? I would, in a perfect world, I would ask them to make new Reb models and revamp the faction like stats, but honestly, at least just give us new models. You
What do you
know?
think the holdup is? Like, what do you no? But like seriously, because it's an OG faction. It was there from the beginning, and there's like, if someone's new and is interested in them, there is no getting into it for you, really.
Right.
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
that's got. I mean, I don't know. It just seems so wrong. But so like, what do you think is like the barriers? Is there just no public interest for it? Because like, I mean, we are loud about it, but you know,
But we are probably the squeakiest wheel.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, and it is kind of that fascinating question, right? Because you look at the summer campaign, and the results there was that the Rebs tied with the Nameless for most wins in Deadzone, overshadowing the new release of the Night Stalkers and so on. And that was worked into the narrative too, right? Where a big part of the premise was that Blaine was manipulating local Reb factions with I think Hector Sanchez, uh, and then invariably as things deteriorated on the planets, uh, kind of befriended the Rebs, and they escaped, or at least some of them escaped Tertia Prime before it was flooded. And so like it is that weird thing where I do feel like there's obviously some narrative interest in the Rebs as a faction. Uh and who doesn't like the Rebs? It's also the most like, again, like the thing that ultimately drew me to the faction at the beginning when I was getting into Deadzone was the diversity of the models and all the aliens that inhabit it. Like, I was
exactly what
fascinated by it.
That's exactly what drew me into it too.
Yeah. The Hammerhead Shark people is a strong pull, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
And
And that was even later. That wasn't even like an early edition.
yeah. But even like, I got that starter set where it was like the Rebs commander, and it's the woman with the gun, and everyone's always making fun of her for like looking at her phone or whatever, uh, with the pose. But like that, like, I obviously started like building a narrative and an identity around these models and characters, as they were for me. And like, so I played the Rebs commander when that was like the least logical model to take as your leader in
Yeah,
second edition.
I remember that, Brian.
Yeah. It was not the smartest move, but darn it, I wanted to play them. And uh
I
so,
think my enforcers wanted to play them too that time at Adepticon.
yeah, I will say that wall solid wall that I couldn't get around definitely played in your favor.
Yeah.
I think that and jet bikes being able to carry items definitely helped in that one. I don't think I would have won it a different way. Like,
I think just
but
superior tactics won out on that day.
yeah.
I'm just putting it out there.
But all that to say, like, I do think people do like the Rebs. And I think everything we were saying earlier about kind of the social media campaign hits at the heart of it a little bit too, right? Where we have seen a surge of subscriptions to Mantic's social media platforms. Now, not all of that's going to be coming from the Rebs. I dare say a lot of it's coming from Halo. But like there is a lot of enthusiasm for fans of the Rebs. But it is hard to get new people, to your earlier point, new people to become a fan of this faction that they have no way to play.
Right.
So like new people getting into Deadzone, and you'll tell them about this mythical faction, the Rebs, and they'll be like, "What's that?" You know, I always see people, really, really talking them up and being enthusiastic about them. It's like, oh yeah, you can't get them anywhere.
I think there's something to be said about that though, because like, let's say they did want to do something with them, they have because they've become just the infamous that they're not really available, and like in my mind, like you're kind of making them more valuable. Like I think they're missing, if they're not doing something with this, they're missing a whole marketing opportunity to just like tease this. All they have to do is like post like half black photo with like you can barely see a Saphir in it or something like that, and you'd get people going. I feel
like wanted posters and
exactly. There's like just so much you can do to build up hype and then reintroduce them, and I think it's just like, I mean, if they have the capability to put what is in existence out, like forget even talking about new models, just restocking, I feel like that's just a good way to move stuff. And I don't know, I think the interest is there for it.
Well, to be fair too, though, a lot of the models were just butt ugly. They've not stood the test of time. They really needed to do them over, and then they did a few over, like the the Saphir and everything came later, but what's the Sebulba guy? The guy walks on his hands.
The Sorak.
The Soraks. Yeah. They did those over, and
the Sword Spawn. The Rins got a couple of new models, like they're. And so like not to get too far ahead, but like that's one thing that's been in the back of my mind. Obviously, like we did get kind of a pseudo like new version of Rebs at one point when Devil's Betrayal came out for Star Saga, because there was essentially a Rebs starter set you could get that was the models from that, which were the kind of board game plastic style. And I think one thing that kind of the benefits of that, and so another often heard thing from Mantic, as we come to know, is like those old Rebs models were built off of like old style like molds and everything that may or may not exist anymore or even be functional, but the ones that they made for Star Saga were likely done in 3D. And so I'm just kind of waiting for that moment when the Vault releases a whole bunch of Rebs models that you could get. Now, it's not going to be the whole line, obviously, but at least the new Rin model we mentioned, the Sorak, Sword Spawn, there's the Reb Trooper that's got the grenade. We've got the Alpha Simians, and I want to say one or two others. We've got likely 3D models of them. Now, obviously, putting them all up on the Vault, we would love that. It would give someone an opportunity to really dive into official Mantic models again. But obviously, like that becomes a weird business decision. And I think Mantic has made some weird business decisions with the Vault in like putting all of Armada on there.
Yeah,
That still kind of blows my mind that they put all of Armada up for 3D printing. But
Bryan, with Armada, I don't know, maybe you have a little more insight, because we have our own kind of like speculations on why. Was Armada selling? Because I know when we went to Adepticon, it was like, it's not a fire sale, it's a space sale, and they were selling everything for Armada. Like I got the whole Abyssal Dwarf ships for like nothing, and
like
now it's
$10 a box they were selling.
It was something like that, and then now everything's in there. But was it just not selling? Because if it wasn't selling, you know what I mean, and then they put it in the vault, that's actually not a bad idea.
Yeah, if it wasn't selling, then it makes sense.
Yeah,
I was actually under the impression of the opposite, that Armada actually like really kept things afloat. For a while, like I did it. Yeah, I intended that. I sent it with purpose and vigor.
Yeah.
But like that was my impression of it, and like the I remember the release for the Trident Realms Armada ships,
right,
sold out at Adepticon. Like you could not get them because all of them were sold.
Right.
So like,
I love those. I love those. That's
they're
what
really cool.
drew me into playing it.
Andrew, I think when we went, we got we spoke to Pat, and Pat was like, listen, there's almost nothing left. And I was like, all right, before we do anything, just give me one of each box. Let's wrap that up, And,
yeah. So yeah, that's that to me, like, I was coming from the perspective that Armada was actually a huge success for them. Tournament wise, it has been consistently very jam packed at Adepticon. Admittedly, locally, we've kind of struggled to get much of an Armada thing going, but I think it's just a very specific audience,
right?
That I'm not part of. So to kind of circle back to the vault, like, so I'm really thinking it's coming, right? Like, that we are going to get a Rebs release in the vault, and that might be the next thing we see from them for a while. Now, I kind of like the idea, and I'll preface this by saying you're not the first people I talk to on a podcast about the Rebs, even this week. The guys from Manticore, one of the newer podcasts that have come on, they like to talk about the narrative and the world and the universe of Mantic and the Warpath and everything. They asked me to come on to talk about the Rebs, as they did a segment on it, which was really fun. I definitely go check out that episode. But one of the ideas that kind of came out, it was, as we kind of expanded into like, oh, what about Rebs in Firefight? How cool would that be? Really kind of taking it in the direction of what they did with Forces of Nature on the Kings of War side. If you're not familiar with Forces of Nature, is that it's a kind of amalgamation of like 3 or 4 different factions, all having like, small units of each one working in tandem for that. And it reminded me, on more of a sci-fi side, when we had in 2nd edition that mercenary list. How neat would it be if we had Rebs, but the Rebs like roster included things like the Brockers, or like you could pick and choose models from the other factions. I hope we would still get unique models for the Rebs faction, but I feel like that's another avenue that could like help fill out the roster a little bit.
Yeah, but that also becomes to what we were saying, where it's kind of lazy. It's like, all right, well, the Rebs are here. We got a few of the models, and now you can buy Forge Fathers and Evil Enforcers, and maybe some GCPS who are unhappy with their payment and stuff. It's kind of like, well, how about some non,
dedicated Rebs.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I hear you.
You know what I mean? It's like, come out with like 20 models and, or just kind of revamp what's already there, maybe a new leader, a new troop, a new heavy,
Can I tell you
a new
something?
support, just one or two things, and that's it. And if you're going to redo the sculpts, all right, redo the sculpts, but do them justice. Do what they should have done, the right way.
I don't know if the Rebs have like more specialists and troops than like any of the other factions, but like to me, when like I've made lists for like Maison and GCPS and Marauders, I noticed that like the Rebs, it's like they have so many different things that is like they could either take things out or completely revamp things and do different things with them. You know, uh, like these like survey drones or like the Z's or the medics or the Yindage. It's like they should do something different or take them out or I don't know what they should do. You know, because like they have so many different things you could take for them on the companion. I'm looking at them right now, but I can't buy any of them too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like really, like I don't know. I think it's just it's odd to me. It's very odd to me.
Yeah, you were always kind of spoiled for choice with the Rebs. There's very few models I would kind of argue that were always like the absolute takes, right? Like each Rebs faction, like each Rebs player would have a very different list than another one.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much variety that can suit a lot of different play styles. And
I do like
and yeah, it's really cool. I do think like to I feel like what you're saying where it would probably be that thing if they were to get kind of that true revamp, probably step one would be paring back some of those choices, right? Like
Yeah.
Making all of the factions out of the gates could lead, or not all the factions, but like all the models out of the gates could lead to not misbalanced or like you have to make all these different models and species and you now want at least two poses for each one. Rebs probably have at the time maybe one of the most diverse list of units, so like double that as far as model counts go. I mean, and in the grand scheme, there were some models we never, or some like units that we almost never got an official model for,
Right.
Without it being classified as something else. So,
but like
it's
like you guys played a lot of more Rebs than I have or Ryan has. Like there are certain things like you think about it, right? I don't know, we've had this discussion before. Like I've never taken medics, and when I have, they don't really do much. The game is too quick to have a medic, so you never take a Jude one. You know what I mean? And looking here, like Z scavengers, have you guys ever taken them?
Yes.
And
they were really handy for the mission where you can collect a whole bunch of items.
Okay. All right.
1 out of 16 missions,
Yeah. Okay.
You're talking to the wrong guy, though, Coach. Remember, I took the Rebs Commander in second edition.
Yeah. But
I like in with intent take some of the choices that don't quite make sense. I've taken the Craw Warriors. I've taken the Jude 1 medics. I usually run a survey drone around for fun. So like the ones that are more less combat centric, I've tried to play around with a bit, but
I mean,
but yeah,
I've always wanted to try a Z spam list. and like just like
It
only
be a
take
horde faction.
only take like 20 Z's, pull what Coach did with the 20 zombies at his plague list.
28.
It was 20.
Oh, it was more than that.
No,
I
it was
played
only
against
20.
that with a very explosive heavy GCPS faction and was just scattering zombies for days. But all that said, like, so I am in the camp to bring us back to the social media campaign, and whether or not Mantic needed to do a social media campaign, I think it maybe is just kind of a maybe half-hearted attempt to give them a little space, but also like give us something for the effort. I think they've got a lot of things going on now. I always, like, on the back of my mind, remember that they're a relatively small company with about a dozen employees, maybe a little more. And so like new things in a company that size take time to do. And I'm trying to be patient.
Yeah, but this is I get what you're saying, but number one, how much longer does that excuse hold up?
Mm-hmm,
All right,
mm-hmm.
that's we've been saying that since 10, 12 years ago. All right. And then
Mm-hmm.
number two is, how long do you wait? Like, how long
Right.
has this revamp of the Res been going on? What, 9 years, 8 years?
You got to think their manpower is behind the biggest IP they've ever had right
Yeah.
now. So
No, I get that, but
Mm-hmm.
Halo's what, 6 months old in Mantic. This has been going on pre Halo. So
Yeah. At some point there's definitely it feels like there's money on the table, right? Like if you make this, people will buy Rev stuff, especially after they've been out of print for so long.
right.
And barring that, like releasing what you've got that's available up on your new 3D platform. Like like the Vault is kind of revolutionary for them. Like they're one of the pioneers in this field of doing both the production for miniatures as well as a 3D space for stuff that they would otherwise make, right?
Right.
A lot of other platforms have gone, start from one and go to the other, but and so like it does seem like, okay, if you can't foot the bill, it's a resource thing. They can't make it happen at a production level for fire. It really seems like it's got to be available for Firefight to really get the company behind it. But the 3D printing is definitely booming right now.
Yeah.
And releasing a faction like the Rebs on a 3D printing platform, I think it makes a lot of sense.
I think that would help a lot of people pull the trigger for the Vault too.
Yeah,
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? Like if the Rebs were the first faction that is strictly a 3D printing faction with the rules and everything, so all right, if you're a companion guy and you have the Vault already, you're going to get the Rebs and all the models, and you're going to get the all like the PDF rules. So, but you got to be in the Vault. You got to be part of the companion in the Vault. Oh man, you know what? I want that. I'm going to do it. But then again, comes up the question, which I know Andrew's about to jump in right now. What if you don't have a printer? Then what do you do? You know what I mean?
The third-party sellers, Etsy.
There's third party, but then there's also maybe second party. Like there are Mantic sponsored printers out there that will print, get the official license to print Mantic models on demand, which is a really cool option for those that don't have 3D printers.
Right. So there's avenues for you, even if it's totally digital, you got a way of getting your stuff.
Yeah. And I think it really, like, that's the way it goes. for the Rebs. It makes the most sense to me. I don't know if there's just stuff in front of it at this point. The same could be said. We've been wanting a reboot of Dreadball for the longest time now. That hasn't seen any love in many years as well. And it's like, the vault's right there. So I think it's a matter of time. The question is, like, come on.
Yeah. So
I think before we continue any longer, I think we should take a little bit of a break, and then we can come back, and I have some more stuff to say, but we'll take a little bit of a break, and then we will come back. Do you need terrain? Do you have a 3D printer? Well, look no further than CorvusGamesTerrain.com, who is sponsoring this episode. They have plenty of STL files for all different kinds of genres, like modern, sci-fi, fantasy, and much, much more. So go to CorvusGamesTerrain.com and use code FOGPodcast15 for 15% off your next order. That's FOGPodcast15 for 15% off your next order. The link will be in the description.
what's up, guys? We're back. It's Coach. I got Ryan. I got Andrew here, and our special guest, Bryan from Deadzone the podcast. What up, Bryan?
Woo, I'm still here.
So Bryan,
They haven't kicked me out yet.
Not yet. I wanted to ask though, what is, because I know you were saying before we broke about firefight. How is firefight, a popularity with in Mantic or whatever, like sales or tournaments and whatnot? Like what's the back end on that? Because we're not playing firefight. I'm just wondering, like, what it's you know what I mean? Like what's the impact?
So I think it's still kind of a growing scene, and it's kind of fascinating because like last year at Adepticon and even the year before, we were kind of looking at the numbers because we're always trying to figure out, how do we thread the needle with all these games going on? What audiences overlap and which ones don't? So where do you lose the most players? And what we found is that the majority of firefight players are Kings of War players.
Right.
They are not Deadzone players. We had very few Deadzone players playing firefight,
which is weird.
Which was weird to us, yeah. But so like given that, like it kind of makes sense that they're very different games, right? Like Deadzone is very much small scale skirmish tight game. Firefight on the other end is that big table battling, measuring, all that jazz. I do think like the rule set's really good, and what's been coming out for it has been pretty slick. I think it's still it hasn't been as big a hit as Mantic would want it to be. In that, but I don't think it's been like a flop. Like I don't think it's been a failure by any means.
Right. But you can't compare the firefight rules to Deadzone rules.
Yeah,
you just can't.
Yeah, but again, like it is a very apples to grapefruit comparison, right? Like, they're unlike each other apart from using D8s. So I really chalk it up to it's just different flavors for different people. All that to say, like I do think. I think it is something where Mantic has been making that effort, like rather than focusing on the small scale, that really pushing for new factions and stuff to be something that is ready for firefight out of the gate.
Right.
And like the Matsudan, they're in the new Asterians. Or they're part of the Asterian faction at the firefight level. and so parsing them down to like the small scale, smaller boxes then. But the big thing is, making the hard plastic sprues to be something that can go into a firefight box and sell at that price point. I think is where Mantic's big focus is, and so I don't know if I danced around answering the question much, but ultimately I think it's kind of just currently in the middle, right? Like I don't think it's been bad, but I don't think it's been as great as they were hoping it was.
Right. They were hoping for it to take off a lot quicker.
Yeah. I think it's been a slower start. And even too, like you think about how they initially wanted to do releases for it, where it was going to be like, they kind of released the rule book and then they did the force list. And the whole thought was that, we'll just release like a new force list every year because the rules will be, pretty solid like they do in the Kings of War side of things. And then they wound up doing the very next release was, okay, we're combining the rules and the force list back into one book.
Right. Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah. So I think, yeah. And as of right now, I don't know what the plans are for the physical rulebook release to include like things like the Night Stalkers. Like they're still technically in the beta.
Right.
And I feel like they've been in beta for a while.
Yeah, that's. Yeah. Well,
maybe they're waiting for like a whole year to go by. I don't know.
I don't know. What is it? Is it just the all hands on deck for Halo? Is that what it might be?
That could also very well be the case, right? Like Halo is definitely taking the lion's share of their resources. It is proving to be very successful sales wise. So I could see that the rationale being like we are putting the effort here right now. We're going to strike while the iron's hot, and they had to do a whole nother print of Wave 1 to meet demand. So
Right.
which is a good problem to have if you're a company.
That's kind of why with Halo coming out, and of course Halo being the success that it is sales wise for them, that's why I feel like we might not be getting Rebs for even longer, just because now they're gonna kind of focus on Halo, and kind of just put all their eggs into Halo, and just do that.
I mean, who could blame them? I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. No, and I'm not blaming them for that, but now that's why I feel like Rebs are not going to be around for a while, like even longer
They're
than
not
it
going to be a
already
priority.
was. Yeah.
Well, the hope would definitely be that thing where like the success of Halo hopefully would translate into being able to expand the company, right? To better support all of these games that you've got. Like Mantic has a pretty wide gaming catalog at this point. With Deadzone, you got Firefight, King, Warpath is coming out as well. Don't forget about that one.
Right.
You've got all their board game stuff, but you also Kings of War, Armada. There's the Ambush version of Kings of War, which gets its own kind of love in a way. So like there's a lot that they've got going on. So like you'd really hope that with things being successful, that can lead to the company expanding and growing to be better capable of managing all their properties, so that it's not an every other year. It's all right. This year it's fantasy. All right, this year it's sci-fi. It can really feel like a feast or famine.
I think they had a summer of sci-fi, and I really think that 2024 for Mantic was the year of the worms. Like that's like Worms is game of the year for me from Mantic, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. But no, but like, and that was a whole nother thing. Like, with the summer of sci-fi, I was hoping that they would do something Reb wise, and I feel like,
Hmm.
honestly, for me, I feel like the summer of sci-fi, they didn't really do anything. And I know they had the My Mini Factory campaign, and they had the Vault strike teams, and they had the My Mini
Yeah.
Factory strike teams and all that. And then Night Stalkers and Mastodon became, their own factions in Deadzone. Okay, but like, or and Firefight for the Night Stalkers. But I'm like, okay, but like, if you didn't have, I kind of goes back to what we were saying before, but if you didn't have a printer, if you don't have a 3D printer, then really the only thing that you see is that the Night Stalkers and the Mastodon are, a new faction, and that's it. Now, I don't
Hmm.
know if maybe that's a lot for people, that getting two whole new factions, but again, like we said like I said before, Night Stalkers made sense, Mastodon, kind of a random choice for a new faction. But you know not counting all the STL stuff, you really only got two new factions for Deadzone. I don't really feel like it was really worth the weight of the summer of sci-fi and whatever.
You think
um
that was throwing us a bone with all the Halo stuff? Like, because obviously, like, that was them trying to show us love, knowing, like, you know, how preoccupied they would be with the Halo IP. Just so, like, we're still doing this, and it does. I mean, it does reward people who are, in the vault. Like, I mean, it's new stuff to look forward to. So, uh,
Hmm.
it just, I don't know. Maybe we're being a little ungrateful, but I'm always wanting a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a bit of a drip feed. Like, and to their credit, like the back the what you call it, the special teams that were released, there was a good chunk of them that had new models designed.
Hmm.
Right.
Like the Goblin faction. There's the Tercia Revolutionaries were technically mostly Dreadball and Star Saga models.
Right.
But they got a little bit of rework. There's some new Enforcer models for the Hand of the Seven. I'm trying to remember. There's the other Veerman ones that were done. There obviously was the Star Saga Merc band that came out.
Right.
So
No,
uh,
the vault has been, like, I've been paying dividends. I've been saying that for
yeah,
years. I even told Ronnie, I was like, it's one of the best things they've done.
absolutely.
And it's funny too, because what's nice about the vault is, like, all right, um, I didn't print up a few ships, or I didn't print up some things, and then you go back to, like, say, April of 2024, and you know what? Now I want to print up this, and I have time to do this. So
Hmm.
it's nice. Or you say, you know what? This is a bunch of Kings of War stuff, but I'm gonna print them up and then kit bash it to make, like, a nice plague faction with some different thing, like make something new about it. And it's all street
It's like
legal because,
abyssal limbs and stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's from the dwarves. Hey, listen, not last year, but the year before, the Brush with Death, a guy took a
Hmm.
bunch of Northern Alliance models and
Hmm.
kit bashed it, and he put some guns in it, like
The
some
the GCPS Winter Armies. Yeah.
right, like that, and it looked great, and they were mostly like Kings of War kit bash with them. And when I spoke to him, he said that, yeah, I got the idea from, like, um, John Carpenter's The Thing, like a
Yeah.
outpost
Yeah.
in that. And I was like, wow, that was awesome. So you could do this with the vault, and it's cheaper because you could, Brian, right? You print about like 30 models, and it'll cost you, what, I don't know, about 10 cents in resin, and
Yeah.
you can clip them off and just go to town with them. So,
No.
like, the vault is, I can't say enough about it. That's why I was doing the
Yeah.
monthly review of it, because it's just so good.
Hmm. Yeah. And like the more the more I'm like reviewing 2024, it is kind of surprising like that the Rebs didn't make the cut. But the Star Saga Rebs that I was mentioning earlier, right? Because you've got the Arius Contract Mercenaries. Later on, you've got Maison Labs as a faction out of there. You've got obviously the Goblins, the Veerman set though. Like just kind of looking through it, they had the Nameless are in here as well.
Right.
So like they have all of the like the sub factions that were in the Star Saga expansions, except the Rebs one. You even got I don't know if they have all of them, but they have a handful of like the other mercenaries that you could get out of like the character creator.
Right.
So it is kind of that one thing where it's just like, and you even got the terrain and the scenery bits out of Star Saga. I was like, the Rebs were right there.
Right.
They were just waiting.
So close yet so far.
Yeah.
They did, and again, that's what I'm saying. Like, the summer of sci-fi, but except the Rebs,
Yeah.
like, and the I think it was the Blaine's Entourage elite team. I felt like that was like the closest to getting a Rebs thing.
Well,
kind of.
technically it came with the Hund.
Right.
Rin
That's
was
what.
in there.
Right. That's why I was like, okay, it's kind of a Rebs thing, but I'm grasping at straws there. Like I
So
it really wasn't.
hopefully it's not something like that they lost the files or something like that, because the model range for that expansion was really good.
Right.
So yeah, I hope it comes back. I love, like you're saying, Coach, it's the ability to like kit bash official Mantic models and 3D print them like is so appealing to me.
Right.
As a fan of Mantic, like I have come to really love the aesthetics and proportions of the models for that Mantic puts out. Like it's the non-heroic scale, where people don't have gigantic heads and stuff. Like their proportions are very set, and they kind of stand out as a model range because of that. And it just is a style, like a stylistic thing that I really appreciate and love about what they do. So like the more I can use official models, the more I want to. So in the Rebs case, it's kind of like a, help me help you.
Right. I just think that the whole thing with the social media thing was it wasn't a good idea. I think they should have went about something a different way. That's just me. Because most of the guys that want Reb models are already subscribed to everything. I mean, all four of us here are subscribed to all their social media. So like, I want real new Reb models, but I already did it. So, it was kind of a moot point for that. I thought it was not a good thing, not a smart way to do that.
It has kind of fallen flat, I think, in that respect, for all the reasons we've talked about, right? Where it's like you're trying to like if the audience that we're trying to need the subscriptions from are new players coming in, because all your existing players already are, and you're trying to get them to do this on behalf of a faction that they can't purchase and they've never maybe even seen in action, it can be a hard sell. And I wouldn't say that the goals were kind of, really, really high up there, but I ran the math on this a little bit ago, and like their YouTube subscribers, it has gone up since I did this calculation, but it's only like 85% of the way there. and their Facebook and Instagram is like at 95%, but that hasn't, the needle hasn't really moved on that since, whether or not that's because we haven't been making the push for more people to join, or as we said, it's because the people we're talking to are already subscribed.
Right.
So we're just preaching to the choir. It would have been, maybe a different social media approach would have been to like, hey, this month post your, your paint up of this Rebs model, or something along those lines, like show, do more of a like, show us your enthusiasm for the Rebs,
Yeah.
but not make it something that you're necessarily like getting outside people who are not really interested in them.
Right, right.
I don't think they could have thought that was going to move the needle on the followers, though. I feel like what drives, I don't know what the numbers are, but at the end of the day, I feel like Halo is driving the increase organically. And just, as someone who works in marketing, it's so hard to push organic social media organically. Like most of the stuff where like people generate a lot of followings with like paid leads. And I'm sure, I don't know. I mean, they're a company, I'm sure they do that to some extent, but like, I think the idea is like, it's just a more thoughtful approach. I think that gets more like community engagement, because I think people who are into Deadzone, into the Rebs, into painting they're going to do that. And, I think that's just like, it's basically free content for the Mantic folks. It's
right.
fun. It's I don't know. It's just engaging. It's just, it's more thought out. So
And I guess I won't, like, I can see where the idea is there, and I don't think it's wholly bad, right? Like Mantic has leaned on its community to do a lot of its advertising for it in the past,
right?
And probably in the future.
Well, look at us doing podcasts and videos.
Yeah, I mean, and I am a cog in this machine here, to be clear. But like, so like that's where I don't wholly fault it. Like there was probably not a big expectation out of it. But that it could be a way to just organically grow, like you're saying. It's hard to make that organic growth happen. So something to just inject a little life into it, I could see it being that thing. And that's also kind of where I'm like seeing that as like, I don't know if they expected us to hit these numbers anytime soon. Which gives them time to focus on things that are hot right now, and maybe gives them time to build up what a release like that would be, right? Like if they are working on new 3D models or preparing them for the vault, just getting a little extra time on that could help move things. Again, it coupled with other recent events, with like all the narrative driving the Tercia, the events of the summer campaign. The Rebs fingerprints were all over that. They hacked the Amazon Labs website. Like that was a very, calculated decision. It's like, we're gonna have the Rebs do this thing. So it's still that oddity that we don't, we ended all that to not have something out the other end.
I guess they're working in the shadows because I can't find them. I don't see them anywhere.
Can't target them for shoot actions this turn.
Yeah.
I think like what they could have done was maybe do something like a game found or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then like let's say you do it January 1st, and then you have a year for it to come out where they'll make new sprues, no plastic. Let's say it took off. Let's say, it had big numbers, people backing it. They would have been paid up front, and they could have come out with those models. It would have been great.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, where it's like, all right, well, we need to reach this goal. Oh man, we reached this goal. All right, great. So let's make some new models.
Yeah. I'm curious if it will ever kind of pivot and translate into something more like a crowd-funded project, like whether that's a Kickstarter project, which they've been very successful on in the
Right.
past. But I feel like the scale doesn't, just releasing one faction doesn't quite line up with their with how they usually leverage Kickstarters. But on the flip side, like the Frontiers campaigns, which they're just kind of dipping their toes into now, have they done 2? I just found out this last weekend that the Vanguard one had launched.
Vanguard one.
Yeah, the Vanguard one.
The Vanguard one.
But with the Vanguard, I mean, like, we didn't play Vanguard, but isn't that just re-releasing the models, like kind of like re-releasing those models?
Yeah, it's a re-release of the models. I think some additional things, like some of the mercenaries that you could get out of the League of Infamy. I think it includes some League of Infamy models as 3D models, which I think a bunch of them were in the vault already,
Yeah.
or coming in the vault. So that's kind of the weird space with their Frontiers campaigns. I don't know if it's just capturing an audience that's not on the vault.
I've talked to a bunch of people who had like mixed reviews about that. Like, why are they doing this and that? I don't particularly have a problem with it. It's you got these STLs sitting around. All right.
Yeah.
If you're in the vault, you're getting the best deal. So go join the vault. But if you missed it, we're gonna sell you the stuff that you missed. And when you think about it, it's no skin off their back. They're selling you STLs that already been paid for. Now, I don't know if they paid for them and made the money back on the physical model. I don't know, but it's like, we know these 2 guys, Bryan and Coach, who have 3D printers who'd love to get their hands on this stuff. And they sell to us. I mean, we could both agree that the vault is probably the best way to go. I didn't back the My Mini Factory campaign because I'm a vault member. There's no reason to do it. But if you didn't do it, now if you go, like, a big talk in our Discord was, should we back it, this and that? I said, well, I don't really need to. I have most of the models and they're going to come out in the vault anyway. And the guy's like, yeah, but I missed a bunch of them, so I'm going to grab them. Okay, that's a good idea. And then from there, the person that said that joined the vault.
Yeah.
So, like that type of campaign, I really don't have a problem. Like, people get pissed off with that. I think it's a smart idea.
Yeah, and then I will also throw in there too, like the Vanguard one in particular had a sub option which was for vault subscribers, which was the terrain.
Right.
So they're releasing a lot of their fantasy terrain that you can get out of the terrain crates that are excellent for like D&D games and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so like, and that was the same thing for their Deadzone release, right? Where it was, you get the 3D or you get the PDF copy of the rules, but you now have the Deadzone STLs for the terrain, which I remember a couple of years ago before I got my 3D printer. And we had all these options like Corvus Games Terrain. Like, man, I was like getting terrain from Mantic was at a premium, and it was like all this great stuff.
The only way to get it was, I mean, listen, the Mantic terrain is great, but it's pricey. And going through Corvus Games, or even that other one we did,
there's a couple. There's like I know there's Vanguard terrain,
right?
Not to be confused with the Vanguard campaign.
right. And then Sorcerman Studios.
Okay.
That was that Cyberpunk, but it was 3x3.
The Grid City or whatever.
Yeah. It was same thing. So great for Deadzone. And then even the Mantic terrain, we were playing. I mean, we were using it in Judge Dredd. We were using it in we used it in Star Wars Legion and stuff like that. So it's very versatile. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, you can get some of that to print up FDM wise. You're in business. The sky's the limit, because it took us a few years just to acquire a bunch of it. Where when we play, we like to hoard the board with the terrain. So now, now it's like it's guys, we can go 6 levels and still have stuff left over, which on a Deadzone board, if you go 3 levels really with a lot of terrain, that's a lot of cubes.
Yeah. Well, even like as like, I've run a lot of tournaments and organizing events and stuff like that. It was hard to get enough official Mantic terrain to fit a board for 8 people.
Right.
But now with 3D printing, I've got like 4 sets that I've gotten. I can just throw in a tub, and then I just hit tub to table.
Right. No, it's like us. I could do right now. I think I could do about, I'd say, a good amount of like 8 tables, without a doubt. But what's nice too? The Corvus stuff is nice. You print up the thing, then you print the lid, and then boom, you're ready to go. It's no, you don't have to worry about construction or, putting those damn connector things and breaking your thumbs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, I do.
I used to use.
It's weird how I get blisters doing that. I'm like, how did I get blisters trying to just squeeze these things together?
Yeah. It was always a little bit off. I used to use a screwdriver to push it in, like a flathead screwdriver. That was the only way to get that going. But it's
so it seems like we're kind of feeling like the social media campaign, like it just kind of feels a little half-hearted. That there's not a strong push from the company, at least at this point in time, to make this a reality.
Right. I agree.
Though I'll throw this out there too. It's like in the past I haven't actually got a chance to play it yet, but it did look like a really fun interpretation of translation, I should say, of that game experience.
I'll tell you what, it's probably one of the better translations from a video game to a board game was what they did it right. Whatever they did right with that, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
For me, I think it is Mantic's Game of the Year.
Nice.
So I think it is a very good board game. I know, Ryan, you've said about them possibly
the expansions. Yeah.
Yes.
I was just I don't know if that's like in the works, but like there's so much you can do that I think is like, it's not like a heavy lift to like, just like you can come out with a new card set, like new weapons, like you can literally like I was talking to Andrew about this, like if we actually referenced this in the Halo video, because we kind of diverged and talked about worms for a little bit, but even if they dropped like 10 new variations of the worms, and the worm, it doesn't matter what the worm is holding, the model, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. Like Andrew was like, oh, I'd be the first to buy that. So like I just think there's so much room to like do more, and I don't think it's a heavy lift. And honestly, if you haven't played it, it's so fun. I think like we know a game is good when we show it to people that aren't at the level we are and they love it. So we've seen that a lot with our friends, like, because like Andrew, I think you'll say this, like everyone you've showed worms to who's not like like they wouldn't even know what Deadzone is, you know what I mean? They love worms. So
right.
Mantic makes good games.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, last night we were the 3 of us were playing, actually 4 of us were playing Hellboy.
Oh yeah.
Hellboy is another top tier board game, not even that Mantic has done, but just in general. It is a fantastic game.
What did we compare it to? We said it was a merger of 2 games.
It was a merging of like Zombicide and Mansions of Madness.
Yeah, right.
Oh, okay.
That.
Yeah.
2 great games, basically merge into one with the Hellboy IP,
Hey Brian, you want to hear a funny story?
Yeah.
So we're at Adepticon, and Andrew and I think it was Ryan were doing a Fallout demo, and they're standing there talking. Oh, it was you and Fabian, and they're standing there, and I know the guy giving the demo, and I was like, oh, Andrew has no idea what's going on here. So I walk up, and they're doing the demo. He's like, right, so now you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. I was like, hey, James, hey, listen, man, I'm a big fan. Halo's one of our most favorite games.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, Hellboy. And Andrew's like, oh, he he wrote Hellboy. You know, like
I was like, oh my god.
you were starstruck for a bit. So,
Yeah.
you know,
I was like, your game is great.
yeah. And it was funny. He said, let's get back to Fallout. No, let's talk more about Halo. You know,
Hellboy.
oh, what did I say?
I think Coach just wants to talk about Halo. That's what I'm hearing.
I know. He's got Halo on the mind.
The funny part of the story.
Yeah.
Just looking back at Worms, they did 537,000 pounds. So
they did
That's pretty heavy.
They have done half a million quid of for the campaign, which correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Umbrella Academy board game fail on Kickstarter, so they had to put it on GameFound?
Yes.
But Worms did better than Umbrella Academy.
I didn't really care much for the Umbrella Academy. Remember we read the comic, it wasn't that good, and I wasn't too crazy about the Netflix. I watched it, it was all right.
I know very little about the Umbrella Academy property. I know it comes from the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, I think. Was the Gerard Way. That's all I know about it.
Show is very, very okay. At least the first 2 seasons.
I thought it was okay. I tried to watch the 3rd season. I got to the 2nd episode. I could not bring myself. And I like to watch everything. I mean, I watch everything, and I was just not into it. I don't know. You know, it wasn't for me. You know, I'm sure there's Umbrella.
Well, Coach, now I got to ask you how you felt about the Halo TV series. You said you got Halo on the brain.
The Halo game.
TV series.
Oh, the TV. Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm very open. Like, I'm more. There's a lot of hate, and like, you know, like the thing now on YouTube is to hate everything. I actually, I'm more positive and optimistic than these 2 jagaloons over here. But
well, I thought I gave a very fair assessment in the last
video. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I like things, and then like I let things kind of go. Maybe that's just my age. You know, like watching some of the Star Wars things, and like, all right, the Acolyte was terrible, but like Skeleton Crew, I'm digging it. I like it. It's enjoyable. It's not Empire Strikes Back, but it's good. I like, you know, I'm more open to things like that. I think that's just an age thing, but Umbrella Academy was awful. Oh, I'm sorry, but Halo, I'm sorry, the series I thought was good. Now, knowing that, like, I was not a Halo guy. I didn't play it, didn't have an Xbox, whatever. I was really, really, really pissed off when Sylvester Stallone took his helmet off in Judge Dredd, knowing that. So I can kind of understand where the hate comes from. But as a guy who doesn't know anything about Halo, just, you know, Master Chief and the like, kind of like, you know, like, you don't know what 40K is, but you know what a Space Marine is.
Right.
That type of deal. I really enjoyed this. I thought the series was good, but then, you know, I was talking to Andrew about it, and he's like, "Yeah, well, how'd you feel when Stallone took the helmet off?" I said, "Well, we don't talk about that because that's serious business." Well, the Halo people felt
that's apocryphal.
yeah. You know, it's you know, that's different. Don't bring up old stuff. But, but yeah, so I get it. You know.
Yeah.
But I did.
And they like, I think I tried to do the same, right? Like I wasn't wholly opposed to everything that changed, because I recognize, or at least I attempt to recognize that, you know, different media requires different ways of you know, doing things.
Right.
And there was just some weird, like, story plot related things to me that just they seemed that they didn't add anything, and then they were like like they didn't do anything for me. So I was just left scratching my head. I'm like, why did we waste time with this character? Like this plot went nowhere.
It's like,
but, you know, it
throwaway
is
episode. They did like 2 or 3 episodes, and then it's like, all right, you never saw the character. Like, why do we even bother with that? You know, like, why was
like the leader of the bad guys on that magical planet that Han was from, that was I forget the actor's name, but he was like, he's in Pacific Rim. He was in Doctor Who and Torchwood. Like he's. I was like, oh, it's that actor. Like he's gonna be relevant and important, and like he's
It was gone.
gone. Like
Yeah.
we don't care about him. Anyway, that's enough Halo talk.
We have a whole 50-minute video on it. We don't need to talk more about it.
But it just kind of spurred that thought for me, where that I think people that are fans of Halo would want the Rebs back is what I'm saying.
I agree.
Damn straight.
And you know what? Halo could be the vehicle for that. You know why? Because the Spartans were originally created to fight insurrectionists.
Right. Well,
They weren't fighting aliens when they first came out.
when I mean, I'm sure Halo's doing well, right? I mean, because I was talking with Rick, and he's like, yeah, I'm fulfilling orders, like second and third orders of at hobby stores. So I listen. As far as Halo, you got to respect Mantic's Gangsta. They did the right thing with that. They're doing what they have to. But we went into it deep, and I don't know. There are a lot of people agree with us, although we get some dislikes, but
I think that people who I honestly like, having gone back and read the comments, and I'm not sour over it, but sometimes it just feels like you didn't watch the whole video, because we touch on a point. They're like, well, what about but this? I'm like, but we touched on that maybe like 40 minutes in, but like I think like if we're gonna give a fair assessment, we sat down and gave a really like, whether you agreed or not, we put our ideas out there on what we thought of the game, and people were just like, it's like they started watching, didn't like what they were hearing 15 minutes in, and then commented something. I'm like, yeah, but we addressed that later in the video. Whether we gave it merit or disagree with it, it doesn't matter. We still addressed it. You're commenting angry at us like we didn't just talk about that.
And we also play the game a bunch of times. We didn't just like play it once and like, this sucks,
Yeah. And I mean that's kind of the way things are these days. Is you get a lot of those people that are they're listening to you not to listen but to respond.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're not hearing all that you have to say. They're just trying to figure out how they are going to reply and rebuttal you.
Right.
So I'm planning to watch the video myself. I apologize that I didn't get to it before this call.
Honestly, I'd like your input on it. Like, what do you think too? Once you watch.
Yeah.
But here's another thing I want to bring up since we got you here.
Yeah.
Running the Deadzone tournament at Adepticon, right?
Yeah.
So we have 24 spots. I mean, I know that it hasn't gone on sale yet. It's 24.
It might be 20 as of right now, but yeah, right around there.
Yeah. When we finish, I got a bone to pick with you, but we'll get to that. But what's with all the Halo Flashpoint stuff? Like, I'm looking here, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Halo Flashpoint on the 27th, Thursday. Halo Flashpoint, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. 60 spots.
So yeah, so there are a number of Halo events that are not just the main. There's obviously like a main Nationals Championship tournament, but then there are also like a duo event, which is you bring two Spartans or two members of a fire team. That's not Master Chief. There's a teams battle one where you and a partner control two Spartans on your team each. There's the Master Chief Challenge, and there's like 7 of those, 6 or 7 of those. So there's a whole mess of events, and I've been asked to make packets for them, so I'm learning about what they're all about.
So yeah, but I get it. Like the Master Chief Challenge is 4 spots. You get
there's a bunch of them are like just small games as opposed to gigantic events. But yeah, they're I was surprised to see there's like the 60 player event, which I don't think is the main tournament, and then there's the national championship, which was like 24 spots.
Yeah, that's the one.
So I don't know if that's still being finalized, because this was just the first pass at the Adepticon roster.
Right, because I'm looking at the schedule, and it's
Mhm.
up there. You know, Nationals on the 28th, 9 to 6, 24 spots left. I'm just wondering how much time they're going to give the people to play, because if you're not going to go 6 rounds, it's just not. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. But
Yeah. Well, I know like Firefight got a big bump. I think it's a full day
right,
tournament this year, where it's like 10 hours.
wow.
Yeah. So probably doing. I think the description still says 3 rounds, but I think that's just a carryover from last year. I think there's a revision coming for that.
Yeah, because when you look at Firefight, also the one-page rules one comes up too. Because Firefight's the big game, but that's their skirmish game.
Right.
Yeah, it's confusing.
No nomenclature, man.
Yeah. So I guess to sum it up is like bring back the Rebs. I mean, like I hate the Rebs and I feel bad. Let's bring them back. Yeah.
They add a great level of flavor to the space, right? Like, and that was like a thing like in comparison to Halo. Like I think Halo is kind of a great like arena battle type play style, but like when I want like a narrative space kind of themed game, like it's Deadzone.
Right.
And
you can't beat it. You can't beat Deadzone. I'm sorry. Just can't.
You can't.
But you're also talking 12 years into it. You know, it's been about 12 years. So
isn't that crazy?
It's got some it's got some legs under it too. You know, I mean, listen, we bought the game day one when Ronnie sold it to us at Deadzone. He said, this just came out and we're selling it. You know, like Kickstarters are going out. So if you don't get it now, and that's when that's when it started. So but
yeah.
So long story short, bring back the Rebs.
Go Rebs.
And bring back 2.0 tag.
And bring back Brawler.
Yeah, Brawl is basically in Halo.
Yeah.
Which I think
it's just a rule. It's not even a like,
It's not a rule, it's a mechanic.
It's a mechanic.
Yeah, which I like. That's one of the things I do like.
Is that 2 attack going in?
2 attack going in. Yeah, I think that's a great mechanic. But now if we start talking mechanics, we'll be here for another 4 hours.
All right. So Bryan, it's truly been an honor. Thank you for being on this episode. It's
been a pleasure, guys.
It's great to hear someone that doesn't play in our basement. It's good to hear their opinion and input, So and guys, check out Deadzone the podcast if you haven't already, with everybody's second favorite Rebs player.
Here we go. 30 seconds.
Hey, I'll take second favorite Rebs player over second best Rebs player, because I cannot live up to that.
Hey, Bryan, what was the score of the first round when we played in Adepticon that time? I forget.
It was not great.
Bring back Rebs. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and check out our link tree in the description for all of our other stuff. Links to our social media page, Patreon, Discord, all that stuff. And we will see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Well, guys, unfortunately, this is the end. But don't worry, they will be back next month. And you can check out all the links in the description or show notes for more Andrew and Coach. See you next month.